Dave, one of the other questions that cropped up on more than one occasion when I asked the pilots' wives what sort of questions they'd like to have answered is that some of them find they get a real sense of anxiety that starts to build up before their pilot goes away. Sometimes that might stay while he's away, or it may ease, but then unfortunately when they know their pilot's coming back again, the anxiety actually ramps up as well. So, I guess there is some inconsistencies and some uncertainties that we need to deal with this lifestyle. And it would be great if you could give a few suggestions and ideas for how people can better manage this roller coaster of emotions that they need to go through on a really consistent basis with a lot of the rosters.
Yeah, it's another really relevant and a good question. And a lot of the couples that I work with, especially when things start to go astray or they start to go south, is anxiety does creep in. And I'll explain a little bit more later about what anxiety is, but anxiety in a relationship, especially when you've got one partner at home, can often build because there's that expectation of what have I achieved while my pilot's been away? Should I have completed this task, or does the house look tidy, or have I kept up appearances that I'm supposed to in social circles? So there can be a lot of anxiety about that. And that constant parting and reunion cycle can be quite stressful. It can be quite challenging. One of the areas that I tend to work with is a lot of time when people feel that anxiety, and anxiety is about fear of the future, whereas depression is more based in the past. Anxiety is more about future focus. It's about the unknown, the fear of the unknown. What's going to happen? How am I going to be? What needs to happen before the pilot comes home? That's really where anxiety sits. And what I try and do is break that down, understand what that anxiety is about, and try and work with that. Because also, we feel a lot of stress. We feel stress in everyday life. And there's stress around that, anxiety. And if that's not checked, it can quite often lead into depression. And then resentment can build. And then resentment can manifest into anger. It can materialise in so many different ways, and even sexual problems. That's another big issue. There are many, many challenges that face this type of lifestyle. Once again, talking about them, being able to openly communicate with your partner, talk about your feelings, talk about your emotions, and what actually goes on for you. It's not a sign of weakness to actually open up and tell your partner what you're actually feeling while they're away, and for your partner to tell you what they're feeling while they're away. Open communication, open dialogue around these issues leads to a deep connection, a far deeper connection, as if we put up these barriers that we don't allow our partner in, and we're supposed to be this certain way while our partner's away or while we're away. Being able to come together, connect, and open up and tell them what you're actually feeling while this is happening will help reduce some of that anxiety. Anxiety per se is not a bad thing. Anxiety has kept us safe throughout the ages. Anxiety goes back to Stone Age times. It stopped us walking into that cave where there was a saber-toothed tiger or another tribe waiting to attack us. So anxiety is there, but it's taken on a different form now. Anxiety comes from a part of our brain called the amygdala, and it's the one that controls some natural stress hormones, namely cortisol, and adrenaline can take over as well. And when we start to live in that moment, and we have more and more of that stress coming into our life and that anxiety, having cortisol running through our body for extended periods of time can really take its toll, not only psychologically but physically as well. So it's a good idea to try and understand about the stress or the anxiety that you're under, and to try and break it down. And a lot of people that I talk with, they do struggle with knowing what they should do or what they shouldn't do. And I talked about expectations early on in the piece. What's expected of me while my pilot's away? Knowing or understanding the roles that we're supposed to do, or the things that we're supposed to do when our pilot is away, can help alleviate that. We are independent, we are individuals, and it's okay to have your own life while your partner's away, because when we don't have our own life, we don't have our own independence to a certain extent, we get tied up and we only recognise who we are when we're in that relationship. We only identify as a wife part of that relationship. So we forget that we do have our own identity. That's really important. When we recognise that we have got our own identity separate to the relationship, I'm not a complete or a whole person unless I'm in that relationship, that's when it leads to problems. Because then we start to question who we are, what we represent, and what value do we see or do we give ourselves. Because when we start to question our value, when we start to question our worth, that's when the problems start. And if we can't see the worth or our purpose or meaning and our value, then we can't see that in the relationship or other people. So when you understand what the anxiety is about, and you're able to break that down, you're able to talk about that with your partner, and recognise who you are and what your purpose is. It's not just someone there that is to serve the relationship or serve your partner or the pilot, that you are an identity on your own. That's when things hopefully will start to move forward, and you'll start to build and grow and be that person that you should be, that own individual, someone that is of value, someone that has got a purpose, that has got a meaning outside of that marriage or that relationship. And when you recognise that, and you can set your own goals, you can set your outcomes and work towards those, that'll give you that energy and that feel-good feeling that you can flow into the relationship. So it's really important to recognise who you are and also what you stand for.
Again, Dave, look, I'm so excited by some of the things that you've shared with us, because I really feel like people are going to benefit from some of the hints and tips that you've shared, and also just feeling like what we deal with on a regular basis is normal. You know, so many partners of pilots out there are just dealing with the same issues over and over again. So it's great to be able to have someone who has really put a lot of thought into ways to try and overcome these issues. So I'm really grateful that you've taken this time to help us out, to understand this a little bit better and have some solutions. That's
not a problem. I think that's one thing that often gets lost in the mix, is that when I'm at home and my pilot's away, you know, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? What's to stop you starting up your own business or going out and getting a part-time job? You know, strive your way. And then you're contributing. You're not just relying on one income coming in. And you've got a purpose. You've got meaning in your life.
Yeah.
So that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and it's not for everyone. It's not to say that everyone has to go out and get a job. But that might be what someone's missing. So yeah, finding those different things, I think, you know, it's really helpful. Dave, I want to thank you so much for the time that you've put into preparing for today and the time that you've put in today. I know you've given some great solutions and suggestions that people can implement immediately to try and make some changes in their relationships and make some changes for the better. if people feel like they're needing a little bit more, if they feel like that this is maybe a start or the tip of the iceberg, and they'd like to look for, someone else that can help support them a little bit more individually in more of a one-on-one situation, what would you suggest that people look for in a relationship counsellor? Or if they're wanting to work with you, is there a way that they can go about doing that?
I think the most important thing is to be able to relate or connect with the counsellor or the professional that you're hopefully engaged. So that's really important, is to feel that connection. You can get in touch with your local professional body wherever you are. I would suggest in this area is try and look for someone that has experience with working in this field, especially relationships, and if they can, transient sort of lifestyle relationships. It's important that they recognise the nuances that go with this type of relationship, because otherwise it can be so broad that you don't really connect. So it's a good idea to have a 20 or 30 minute conversation with the professional that you may be intending to engage with, so that you can feel that they do understand your needs. That's a really important piece, because if you can't connect and you can't relate, then it's just not going to work. I tend to have a good 20 or 30 minutes conversation with either the individual or the couple before I even think about whether I can engage with them, and vice versa. Because if I don't feel that there's that connection there, then I don't want to waste their time or their money. And obviously they have to feel comfortable with working with me. That's a service that I offer. And I've worked with Erica, as she's mentioned earlier, that we're trying to put something together here to make it quite specific, to be tailored towards your needs. And that goes with the resources that are on the site, which you can look into more.
I think what you said about connecting with a counsellor or with a coach is so critical. I know in my relationship now, but also in some relationships in the past, we've sought counselling, or we've worked with relationship counsellors, and they're definitely not all created equal. And I've done exactly that. Is I've gone for an appointment, felt like it really wasn't working for us, maybe even 2 appointments, and so we've actually gone and found someone else. So I definitely just want to really reiterate, if you feel like counselling is not working for you, it might not be the counselling, it might be the counsellor. And it doesn't mean that counsellor is not a good counsellor, it just might mean that they're not a good fit for you in your relationship. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. So look, I'd love it if people would take you up on the offer to talk with you and maybe get some more advice if they're feeling that they need that. And we will definitely put those links in the description of the video below. So thank you again, Dave, so much for your time. I'm really, really grateful.
It's okay, thank you.